Unseen forces: how America's energy heartland is collapsing from within. Federal officials froze. The data flashing across their screens from West Texas wasn't just unusual, it shattered decades of certainty. A region once thought to be stable now revealed something so alarming it could rewrite the entire playbook for the future of energy safety and policy in America. What did they see? And why are experts warning this could change everything we thought we knew about Texas? What began as a routine monitoring of the Permian Basin, one of the world's most productive oil and gas regions, quickly turned into a mystery. Deep beneath the surface, in areas where there should have been nothing but solid, stable rock, something was moving. And it wasn't just moving in one place, the activity was spreading across a massive underground network that nobody knew existed. What made this discovery even more shocking was its scale. The data revealed a vast seismic zone stretching across huge portions of West Texas, affecting areas where millions of people live and work. The implications were staggering. Infrastructure worth billions of dollars, including highways, pipelines, oil rigs, and entire communities, suddenly faced risks that nobody had anticipated. Officials at the Texas Railroad Commission, the state's oil and gas regulator, initially reacted with disbelief. How could something this massive have gone unnoticed for so long? But as more data flooded in from multiple sources, the reality was undeniable. Something fundamental was changing beneath Texas, and it was happening fast. This discovery couldn't have come at a worse time. As the nation's leading oil and gas producer, any threat to Texas's stability isn't just a local issue, it's a national security concern. Federal energy officials quickly realized they were dealing with something that could impact America's entire energy supply. The ground is disappearing. The second wave of revelations hit even harder than the first. Across West Texas, massive sinkholes were appearing with alarming frequency. These weren't small depressions. Some were hundreds of feet wide and just as deep, capable of swallowing entire buildings in seconds. Towns like Wink and Kermit, which had stood peacefully for generations, were now living on ground that could collapse without warning. The data revealed a terrifying pattern. The sinkholes weren't random. They correlated directly with the underground seismic activity. Scientists realized they were looking at two symptoms of the same fundamental problem. The earth beneath West Texas was literally restructuring itself, and the changes were accelerating. What made officials particularly concerned was the mechanism behind these changes. The region sits on top of massive deposits of salt, gypsum, and other minerals that dissolve easily in water. For millions of years, these deposits remained stable. But something had changed the underground water flow patterns, causing rapid dissolution of these minerals and creating enormous underground cavities. When these cavities became too large, the ground above simply collapsed. The connection to human activity became impossible to ignore. The Permian Basin has been the site of intensive oil and gas extraction for decades. But in recent years, the methods used to extract these resources have become more aggressive. Hydraulic fracturing, commonly known as fracking, involves injecting millions of gallons of high-pressure fluid deep into the earth to crack rock formations and release trapped oil and gas. Even more significant was the practice of wastewater disposal. Every day, billions of gallons of contaminated water from oil and gas operations were being injected into deep underground wells. This wastewater had to go somewhere, and the data showed it was spreading through underground rock layers in ways nobody had predicted. The PRES. The Underground Superhighway. Federal geologists studying the data made a startling discovery. The injected fluids weren't staying where they were supposed to. Instead, they were migrating through previously unknown pathways, reaching geological formations that had been stable for millions of years. These fluids were acting like a lubricant, allowing rock layers to slip past each other and triggering earthquakes in areas that had never experienced them before. The situation in West Texas was unprecedented in American history. Never before had human activity caused such widespread geological instability across such a vast area. And the data suggested something even more troubling was developing deep beneath the surface. The most shocking revelation came when scientists began mapping the full extent of the underground changes. Using advanced seismic imaging technology, they discovered something that shouldn't exist according to conventional geology. Beneath West Texas, a vast network of interconnected fractures and fluid pathways had formed, creating what researchers described as an underground superhighway for pressure and fluid movement. This network extended far beyond the areas where drilling and injection were taking place. The data showed that disturbances in one area could trigger effects hundreds of miles away. It was as if the entire underground structure of West Texas had become a single interconnected system where changes in one location could cascade throughout the region. Federal officials were particularly alarmed by the depth of these changes. The activity wasn't confined to shallow layers near the surface. The data revealed disturbances extending several kilometers deep, reaching into rock formations that had been undisturbed since the age of dinosaurs. These deep disruptions were creating new pathways for fluid movement and pressure transmission that could persist for centuries. The implications for public safety were enormous. Traditional models. A national crisis unfolding. The data was clear about the risks that would prove even more disturbing than the immediate physical dangers. As federal scientists analyzed the patterns hidden in the data, they uncovered evidence of a potential chain reaction that could extend far beyond Texas. The underground pressure changes weren't respecting state boundaries. The same geological formations that were becoming unstable in Texas extended into New Mexico, Oklahoma, and even parts of Colorado and Kansas. The data revealed that the massive fluid injections in Texas were creating pressure waves that traveled through deep rock layers for hundreds of miles. These pressure waves were subtle at first, but they were gradually weakening geological structures across a vast region of the American Southwest. Areas that had never experienced significant seismic activity were beginning to show signs of instability. What particularly shocked officials was the discovery of previously unknown fault lines that had been activated by the pressure changes. These weren't the major well-mapped faults that geologists monitor for earthquake risk. These were ancient hidden fractures in the earth that had been dormant for millions of years. The industrial activity in Texas was literally waking up geological features that science didn't even know existed. The computer models predicting future scenarios were terrifying. If current trends continued, the zone of instability could eventually affect major population centers far from the oil fields. Cities like Amarillo, Lubbock, the long-term disaster. Yet, even these dire possibilities weren't the most shocking discovery hidden in the data. The most disturbing revelation came when scientists calculated how long the underground changes would continue, even if all industrial activity stopped immediately. The data showed that the processes already set in motion would continue for decades, possibly centuries. The billions of gallons of fluid already injected underground couldn't be removed. They would continue spreading, dissolving minerals and altering pressure patterns long after the last well was sealed. Federal geologists compared it to a geological avalanche that had already started rolling. Even if you removed the trigger, the momentum would carry the destruction forward. The underground cavities already formed would continue to grow as water slowly dissolved more rock. The pressure imbalances already created would continue seeking equilibrium through earthquakes and ground shifts. The data revealed that some of the injected fluids had reached depths where the temperature and pressure caused chemical reactions nobody had anticipated. These reactions were creating new compounds that were even more corrosive to rock formations. Some of these chemical processes were self-sustaining, meaning they would continue even without any additional input from the surface. Scientists discovered that the underground changes were affecting the region's natural heat flow. Deep injection wells had created pathways for hot fluids from extreme depths to rise toward the surface. In some areas, ground temperatures were increasing measurably. This geothermal activity added another layer of complexity to the already chaotic underground environment. The biological implications were equally troubling. The data showed that ancient microorganisms sealed in rock formations for millions of years were being released into modern aquifers. While most of these organisms were harmless, some produced gases and chemicals. The buried truth. Perhaps the most shocking revelation wasn't about the geology itself, but about what certain people already knew. As federal investigators dug deeper into the data, they discovered that some oil and gas companies had been collecting similar information for years. The corporate data showed that as early as 2015, some companies had noticed unusual pressure readings in their injection wells. Their own geologists had warned about potential risks of continuing operations at current levels. But these warnings were buried in confidential reports that never reached regulators or the public. Instead, companies had quietly increased their insurance coverage while publicly maintaining that their operations were completely safe. Email exchanges between executives revealed a calculated decision to keep operating despite known risks. One particularly damaging message stated that stopping operations based on theoretical geological concerns would cost billions in lost revenue and might trigger industry-wide regulations. The executives had made a cost-benefit analysis that put profits ahead of public safety.